Hi, this is the HitchHikerXF. It's based on Paul Cox's ingenious design of two opposing planes that provide the majority of their friction for the descent. Then they collapse easily to disable all that friction when you're ascending up the rope. One brilliant aspect of the HitchHiker and its design is that non-controllable friction or proportional friction and the controllable friction work in unison. One cannot work without the other. They oppose each other and provide the friction on the mechanical part. So the mechanical part is the connection to that friction that gets everything started. But again, they just work in unison. You can't have one without the other. The Hitch Hiker is a unique device in the world of multicenders, and a multicender in our climbing world is one that ascends, it descends, and then it can go laterally with little or no configuration change. It's based on a hitch, on a friction hitch. A friction hitch is very simple, it's strong, it's versatile, and it's reliable. You can put all kinds of different hitch cords and climbing line combinations in here that work very well. The mechanical part is also very simple and it's very strong. The parts of this are all built with 7075 T6 aluminum. They're hard coat anodized and they are extremely durable and tough. What I invented with the HitchHikerXF combines and refines what was already invented. So what makes the HitchHikerXF different than prior designs? One is that we have combined the anchor point where you attach to your harness and the tending point. It's all on the same point. So there's no place up here that needs to be connected to. This is not a tending point. It doesn't have a tending point separate attachment. And I'll demonstrate that in a minute too. We've also added dynamic friction in that friction can be added for long descents or for an additional load. So let me explain the different parts. And this is the body of the HitchHiker. It has the upper slots for the dog bone and the lower slot for the slic pin. And there's the opening there for the extra friction. Up here at the top, we've put a channel that allows the swing arm to get even closer to the climbing line, because that's the point where when the anchor turns into the tending point, where it can kind of get a little closer to the climbing line. And then inside it's all smoothed out so that there's no rough edges where those threads are for the passing climbing line. So this is the slic pin keeper that is modeled to have a low profile and stay adjacent or next to the swing arm. At one end there's an insert for the head of the slic pin. It just makes it much easier to quickly identify the position of the slic pin. And at the other end is a hole where the small screw secures it to the swing arm. And this is the dog bone. It's similar to the original designs. It is smoothed so that it doesn't gouge into the side of the body. The holes are sized for a variety of hitch cords. It's easy to get the hitch cords into the dog bone, and it is 7075 T6 anodized, hard anodized aluminum. This is the friction plug that goes and screws into the body of the Hitch Hiker. Notice this end is all smoothed out so that it is appropriate wear on the climbing line as it goes by. The threads are such that it's pretty easy to thread in and thread out. Sometimes you put a little 3-in-1 oil right here on these threads. And this hole down at this end is modeled such that it makes a nice little connection for the small carabiner that we have at Climbing Innovations too. This is a swing arm that doesn't have the captive eye. It's rounded to be friendly with whatever swivel or connection that you put at that end. It has the hole for the slic pin keeper to connect. The edges down here are conducive for the slic pin and sized for the slic pin, and it's designed for strength. This is the swing arm that has the captive eye. It's all milled out of one piece of 7075 aluminum and has tested to be extremely strong. It's just like the other swing arm, except it has that built-in captive eye. The intention is that you would be putting this on your rope bridge, and this opening is large enough that you can put your rope bridge through here and also put a carabiner for going to the doubled moving rope configuration. So this was the load test analysis that we did to make sure that because it has a dog leg, it was going to be very strong. And as you can see, I don't see any weak spots. So this is the HitchHikerXF body. When you're facing it, you'll be facing the print this way. Those are the incline planes. This is a little notch at the top that allows for your swivel, whatever, gives it a place to kind of be in position and be there. So, but this is the body. So this is the swing arm with the captive eye, and then it's got a swing arm keeper on there that just keeps you from, when you take this out, it'll help prevent that from being lost. When you put this into the body, it goes this way. Notice that brings the climbing line, or the tending point, as close to the climbing line as it possibly could be. Let me explain too right now. When the plungers are completely extended and the slic pin is completely inserted, let me show you how many actions it takes in order for this to become disconnected. Because you still have your hitch up here for your life support, and you would end up falling if this point came disconnected. So to disconnect this, I have to push that and push again. So there's 1, 2, and I have to push and push again. That's 3, 4, and then I have to pull this again. That's 5. Now we're on the inside here. I have to turn to get that plunger to go in. That's 6. I have to pull it again to get that to disconnect. That's 7. And the rope would be out, but I'm still connected. I have to turn it one more time to get that plunger to compress. So that's 8. And now I have to pull it one more time to get that to complete. It takes 9 deliberate actions in order to disengage the slic pin. So this is the version that has the captive eye. It's meant to be attached directly to your climbing harness on the bridge attachment. The other version does not have a captive eye, and it's intended that you would use something with a captive eye. This is a Rock Exotica swivel eye, so it makes for a little faster connection on and off the rope. This is what I use for my secondary anchor. I climb pretty much with a primary anchor, this being my primary anchor, and I usually climb with an anchor that's very portable. Up here, my anchor up there has a separate retrieval line, and I'll use different configurations that I'll demonstrate later that make moving that anchor around, moving it up higher in the tree or moving it to a different side of the tree, very simple. So this has, the swivel eye is generally my secondary system. You can still use it in a singled rope configuration, or you can easily attach to make it a doubled moving rope configuration. Okay. So this is the swing arm with the captive eye. It lives on my harness. I can take it off because I can open my harness, but the slick pin keeper is this molded part that fits right along the side. It's nylon. Don't replace this with like some kind of stainless steel or anything really strong. It needs to be such that it will keep this slick pin from disappearing if you're not paying attention, but you don't want it to be so strong that it could catch on something and pull on the slick pin. It takes a lot to get these plungers to pull through there. I heard it's like 600 pounds. So you'd have to be pushing on that 600 pounds to get that through. So that basically lives on my bridge like that. I'll attach to the rope just like this. And notice here that it's really easy to tell that those plungers are all the way through, and the slick pin, the head of that slick pin is almost flush with the top of that keeper right there. Just makes a very nice visual image. That is your life support connection across there. So is the dog bone there with these. There's a double overhand stopper knot here and a stevedore stopper knot there. So here I have set up a 3-to-1. Some people will use this for coming back on a rope or a limb walk. Different configurations. You can configure it with a prusik knot. Got a ISC rocker up there. I think this is a familiar configuration. But notice with the friction hitch, there's nothing here that gets in the way. There's nothing to collapse. It makes it, I wouldn't say fail-proof, but there just isn't a lot of things that can go wrong with a simple design like this. And this gives you your, if I was climbing on this, a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage right there. If I'm going out on a limb walk, of course you take the tail with you. You don't have to worry about anything collapsing. It just So here's another thing that happens a lot. Guys will do a redirect. I don't do a lot of these because I usually move my anchor. But if you're doing a redirect and you're dragging this tail with you, there's no issues with the tail coming in contact with your friction hitch. So this is another configuration. This would be a 6-to-1 mechanical advantage if I'm actually climbing on it. But it's in a doubled doubled moving rope configuration. Again, notice that there's no issues with this close contact, and you can do a pick off that way. A great mechanical advantage. Again, this is generally my secondary system, so there's just not a lot of configurations that give us problems. So this would be the doubled moving rope configuration, and I want to show you something, because sometimes you may not have a spliced or sewn eye termination on the other end of your climbing line. GoPro, stop recording. So if you don't have a sewn termination or a splice termination, most of you would recognize this as being fairly undesirable, because you don't want to have a knot next to your friction hitch. But notice with my combined tending point that's not a problem with this at all, because as soon as you start moving this up, notice what that swing arm does. The swing arm actually pulls or pushes the knot away from the friction hitch, and so it doesn't create any kind of a problem. Say I'm in this configuration, I'm ascending the rope, and this knot is above my friction hitch. Well, as soon as you start coming down, you wouldn't want this knot to come in contact with your friction hitch, right? But notice what that swing arm does. It pulls it or pushes it away, so you don't have that issue anymore. Just, it kind of is a neat little feature that it keeps this from coming in contact there. So this is the dynamic friction plug. We put it in for long descents, or for a added load, or maintaining our position a little better. Some of you might look at this and go, oh, that's the tending point. It is not a tending point. If you try to lift the hitch hiker up by holding the body or holding that for a tending point, you will go nowhere, because that's how the hitch hiker works. Just remember, this tends this way. There's a notch that we have on the top of the hitch hiker there. Notice how this fits right in there, and that brings that tending point as close to the climbing line as it can be, because it's all balanced. It's right there by the climbing line. So some of you like to have a swivel that lives on your bridge. This is one option. This is the swivel arm that does not have the captive eye, so that'll go on there. Notice it's got rounded edges and everything, so it's got a friendly contact. And so now you have that type of a swivel connection that some of you might like. Here's another swivel by Rock Exotica. It makes a nice tight little connection onto the rope bridge. So again, just connect it to the hitch hiker, and now you have a nice little swivel. So obviously you can also use the tail end if you needed a really long lanyard connected to your side Ds. You can use a really long lanyard connected to your suspension points. Or you can use the really long lanyard, which now becomes basically a double moving rope climbing system. So that would be, looking up there, that would be the On-Bight Redirect on a quickie. And so I would be doing something. I'd come to the ground, or I came out and I came down, and I'm moving around. Maybe go out, do your limb walk, something like that, and then I come back and things. So now I'm basically done with that redirect, and rather than having to tail all my rope through all of that, and again, there's no problem with anything coming in contact and affecting my hitch. So when I come down, I'll lanyard into something because I need to be on life support when I come off of this. That comes off, and then we fish this back. And if you take a look at the redirect up there, that pulls through, and then that comes down. My quickie comes back down to me, and I'm ready to go someplace else and create another redirect, or use my other tail of my line for doubled moving rope or something like that. So anyway, HitchHikerXF hitchhiker with the extra friction, and the swing arm that provides the dual function of the anchor point and the tending point. So there's my anchor over there, and it's going to be retrievable on that side. And there's my On-Bight redirect, and that's where I'm going to go. And this goes back up. And there's my quickie back, and I'm completely clear of that redirect.